walk up, heart pounding, ready to impress, and within seconds you see it. Her eyes dim, her smile fades. She's already pulling away, not because you're ugly, not because you said the wrong thing, she just felt it. Weak energy. No spark, no pull, only the safety that kills desire. Machiavelli called this a fatal mistake, needing her more than you stand in your own ground. Attraction is born from tension, not comfort. In this video, I'll show you how to bring the kind of presence that makes her lean in without chasing, without begging. If being nice ever made you invisible, stay until the end. 1. Why questions kill attraction. She doesn't lose interest when you run out of things to say. She loses interest the moment she sees it. The empty smile, the searching eyes, the way you hand her the weight of the moment and hope she'll carry it for you. And nothing exposes that faster than opening with the same safe questions she's heard 100 times before. Evan was 32, an architect from Chicago. Sharp dresser, stable job, polite smile. He spotted Julia at a rooftop bar. Sunset glow on her skin, the kind of beauty that makes a man forget the noise around him. He took a breath, walked over, and said, "So, what do you do?" She answered without much thought. He nodded, buying time. "Where are you from?" She gave him a city name, eyes drifting to the skyline. He tried a quick laugh, not from humor but to keep the air from feeling heavy. "How long have you been here?" Her replies shrank, the sparkle in her eyes dulled. To him, it was polite conversation. To her, it felt like a job interview she never agreed to. She'd been here before, dozens of men leaning in with the same nervous smile, waiting for her to make them interesting. She caught the subtle signs, the way his shoulders tilted toward her as if begging for approval, the quick chuckle at every minor comment, the slight pause before his next question as he searched for the right thing to say. In less than 2 minutes, her mind was already moving elsewhere, not because of his words, but because of the absence of energy behind them. No spark, no frame, just another man hoping she'd do the emotional work. By the time he asked, "So, what do you like to do for fun?" she'd already started glancing back at her friends, her body angled away. Machiavelli would have called it a fatal mistake, giving control of the moment to the very person you hope will follow you. In the theater of attraction, the man who starts as an interviewer is never cast as the lead. Desire isn't born from collecting facts. It's born from the feeling you create without asking for permission. What comes next isn't small talk. It's the move that makes her forget every man before you and wonder why she can't stop thinking about you. He thought curiosity meant asking questions. She saw it as neediness. And neediness is the fastest way to drain attraction. He believed shining the light on her would make her feel special. Instead, she felt the pressure of carrying him. How much of what you call being respectful is really just surrender in disguise? Be honest. When was the last time you stepped onto the battlefield with no weapon but small talk and watched her interest retreat? Drop the moment, and I'll give you the exact strike that would have turned it. Stop opening with questions she's heard 100 times. Lead with something real. Your observation, your mood, the frame you want her to step into. Set the scene before you invite her into it. When you do, she leans in, not to rescue the conversation, but because she's curious about the world you've already built. You'll see it in her eyes. She's not just listening, she's stepping closer. Skip what comes next, and you'll keep letting women decide whether your story is worth hearing. Watch the next part. Watch she's really scanning, and you'll finally see the split-sec test that decides if you're a man to follow or a man to forget. 2. What she's really scanning. She doesn't turn you down because of your looks. She turns you down because she feels your energy bending toward hers, waiting for approval. That split second when her eyes stop meeting yours, when her smile freezes just enough for you to notice, that's when the game is over. Attraction dies not in the words you say, but in the way you stand there, asking to be allowed in. Marcus, 35, sales manager in Austin, was no stranger to success on paper. But the night he met Claire at a rooftop dinner, his presence told a different story. She was glowing under the city lights, laughing at some shared memory with a friend. When they were introduced, he gave a polite smile and asked about her work. She answered, and the silence that followed felt like a test. Marcus panicked, filling it with another question. Then another. His words were fine, but the delivery betrayed him. Shoulders slightly hunched, eyes searching hers for signs of approval, tones soft like he didn't want to disturb the air. Claire wasn't really listening to his questions, she was reading the man asking them. Was he steady? Would he hold his ground if she disagreed? Or would he fold into whatever shape she preferred? By the second minute, she had her answer. It wasn't his looks, his manners, or his resume that made her step back. It was the invisible message carried in his energy. I need you to like me, or I don't know who I am. And once she felt that, the spark collapsed into polite indifference. Machiavelli would have named it instantly. The man who seeks permission has already given away his power. In the theater of attraction, your presence is the stage, and your words are just props. If the stage shakes, the whole scene falls apart, no matter how polished the dialogue. What comes next isn't about memorizing better lines. It's about making her feel the frame you stand in before you speak at all. He thought his kindness was respect. She read it as self-doubt wrapped in manners. He thought letting her steer was charming. She saw a man unsure if he belonged in the driver's seat. And when a man doesn't know his own weight, someone else will decide it for him. How much of what you call being nice is really just fear in disguise? Name the next battlefield you'll walk into where you refuse to hand her the high ground. Then I'll give you the Machiavellian maneuver to make her advance first. Before your next conversation, test this. Stand your ground, shoulders opened, voice steady, eyes resting instead of searching. Speak as if your words already have value, without waiting to see if she'll give them worth. You'll notice people leaning in, not to rescue you, but to join you. That's when you stop chasing presence and start radiating it. Miss what's next and you'll keep handing the wheel to whoever stands in front of you. But watch the shift that changes everything, and you'll see how to flip the moment so she feels your pull before she knows why. And once she feels it, she won't forget. 3. The shift that changes everything. The moment she senses you're waiting for her to set the tone is the moment she quietly decides you're not the man she thought you might be. It happens faster than you think. One shift in her eyes, one subtle tilt of her body away from yours. You might still be talking, but in her mind, she's already somewhere else. Ethan, 32, a software consultant from Denver, met Julia at a friend's art gallery opening. She was leaning casually against a white wall, glass of wine in hand, scanning the room with the ease of someone who knows she belongs there. Ethan approached with a polite smile and asked, "So, what do you do?" Julia's lips curved politely, but her gaze flickered past him for just a second, enough to register he didn't notice. He filled the air with another question, then another, his voice rising slightly as if each answer would open the door to connection. But Julia wasn't listening for information. She was listening for presence. Was this a man who could hold the frame, or a man hoping she'd take the lead? By the time Ethan noticed her eyes drifting toward a new arrival across the room, the outcome was set. She wasn't rejecting his questions. She was rejecting the energy behind them, the subtle signal that he needed her to anchor the moment because he couldn't do it himself. Machiavelli would have called it the fatal tell. When you make your presence dependent on someone else's reaction, you've surrendered the stage before the first act begins. In the theater of desire, leadership isn't about control, it's about making the space feel steady enough for someone to want to step into it. Words can't compensate for a shaky foundation. What comes next isn't about pretending to be bold. It's about shifting the frame so she feels the weight of your presence before you say a single word. He thought asking questions was curiosity. She read it as hesitation. He thought letting her steer was respectful. She saw a man unsure if he could steer at all. And when a man's energy asks for permission, the answer, whether spoken or not, is always the same. How much of what you think is being polite is really a quiet surrender of your position? And what siege did you abandon the second you felt her pull away, turning your fortress into open ground? Put it in one sharp line, and I'll reveal why it collapsed. Before your next conversation, stop leading with, "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" Instead, open with a statement that plants the scene in your world, something that carries energy without waiting for her to supply it. Stand as if you already own your place in the room. You'll notice the shift. She leans in, not to rescue the moment, but to join it. Skip this shift, and every conversation will feel like an interview you can't win. But catch the next part, and you'll see how to turn that first 30 seconds into the hook she can't pull away from. The art of leading without chasing. 4. How to handle agreement like a man. The first time she disagrees with you is not a threat. It's the test you didn't know you were taking. Most men fail it instantly. They smile too fast, agree too quickly, as if smoothing over tension will buy attraction. But the moment you give up your stance, she's not thinking, "What a nice guy." She's wondering if you can hold your ground when it actually matters. Brian, 35, ran a small design studio in Chicago. He met Hannah at a rooftop party one late summer night. Warm air, string lights swaying, the hum of low music between bursts of laughter. They'd been talking for 10 minutes when Ryan said, "I like this place. It has that calm after the storm vibe. Feels like time slows down here." She tilted her head, lips curling, not quite a smile, before answering, "I don't really like it. Feels pretentious." That was the moment. Ryan's chest tightened. He didn't want friction, so he laughed lightly and replied, "Yeah, I guess it's not that great." It took 3 seconds for her gaze to shift. Cooler, less engaged. The conversation limped on, but something invisible had broken. She wasn't testing his opinion about a bar. She was testing whether his presence could survive a ripple, and he had just told her without meaning to, "No, it can't." Machiavelli warned, "The man who abandons his position to please another has already declared himself the weaker party." In the silent politics of desire, a small retreat in principle becomes a collapse in perception. Attraction doesn't spark from echoing someone's view. It comes from creating a frame they want to step into. Disagreement, handled with calm certainty, isn't conflict. It's proof you can carry your own weather into the room. Up next, how to make disagreement magnetic instead of destructive, without turning it into a fight. He thought agreement was connection. She read it as surrender. He thought avoiding conflict was maturity. She saw a man afraid to stand on his own ground. And when the ground disappears, so does desire. How often do you trade your stance for approval you never truly get? When was the last time her pushback hit like an arrow, and you dropped your shield to avoid tension? Write it in one sentence, and I'll give you the counterstrike. Next time she pushes back, don't rush to match her mood. Keep your tone even, your eyes steady, your posture relaxed. Say, "I get that," then hold your original thought. You'll notice her leaning in, not because she suddenly agrees, but because she's curious about a man who doesn't collapse under pressure. That's when the test flips. From measuring weakness to sensing strength. Miss this shift, and every disagreement will quietly erode your presence until there's nothing left for her to respond to. But catch the next part, and you'll see why disagreeing well can be the spark that makes her see you differently. The subtle art of standing firm without starting a war. 5. Real examples that shift energy. The first time she disagrees with you is not a problem, it's a moment of truth. Most men panic. They think, if I just agree with her, she'll like me more. But the second you abandon your stance, you don't look agreeable, you look afraid. And fear is the fastest way to erase attraction. Ethan, 34, a financial analyst from Chicago, was on his 3rd date with Lauren. They were sitting in a quiet rooftop bar, city lights stretching out like a sea of gold. The conversation was light, easy. until he mentioned how much he liked the place. Lauren tilted her head, gave a half smile, and said, "Really? Feels kind of overrated to me." That small knot in his stomach tightened. Without thinking, he laughed and said, "Yeah, maybe you're right." She sipped her drink, looked past him for a moment, and the energy between them shifted. It wasn't about the bar anymore. She had just seen how quickly he'd trade his own perspective for her approval, and in that instant, her curiosity faded. Machiavelli would say, "The man who gives up his position to please declares himself the lesser without speaking a word." In the silent currency of attraction, tension is gold. Give it away too soon and you bankrupt the moment. Hold it calmly, without ego, and you control the pace, the tone, and the frame. In 30 seconds, you'll see why this exact tension is the seed of emotional connection, and how men destroy it without realizing. He believed agreeing was kindness. She saw submission. He believed avoiding friction showed maturity. She saw predictability. When presence becomes compliance, interest dissolves faster than you can recover it. How often have you smoothed over a moment, thinking it was the right move, only to feel her attention drift away? Next time, don't argue, but don't fold. Keep your tone even, your body still, your gaze steady. Say, "Interesting. I was actually enjoying it. What would make it better for you?" Or, "Really? That's surprising. I liked the vibe here. What's missing for you?" You keep your frame and still invite her into the moment. You're not chasing approval. You're showing her she's with a man whose center doesn't shift at the first ripple. That's the kind of presence that leaves a mark. Write the order you wish you'd sent your younger self before marching into her war. Then I'll rewrite it in Machiavelli's voice so it never happens again. Don't reply with blind agreement tonight. Don't smooth over every difference. Let her feel that your truth has weight. You'll notice her leaning in, not to hear better, but to feel the energy you're holding. Keep this, and you'll keep draining the tension that could have made you unforgettable. Stay for the next part, because we're about to uncover why tension isn't just a reaction. It's the spark that creates emotion, and emotion is what burns your memory into her mind. 6. Tension equals emotion equals memory. The moment you remove all tension, you remove all memory. Think about it. When was the last time you remembered a conversation that was perfectly polite, perfectly smooth, perfectly safe? You don't. Because safety without spark is forgettable. The same rule that makes a movie scene stick in your head is the one that makes you unforgettable in her mind. Emotional tension. Ethan, 32, worked in marketing. He was smart, well-spoken, and always nice. On his second date with Maya, he stuck to what he thought was safe ground. Questions with no edges. "So, what do you do? Do you like the food?" She answered, but each time her eyes drifted away a little sooner. The turning point came when he asked, "So, do you like this kind of music?" She smiled politely, said, "Yeah, it's fine," and went back to her drink. Ethan felt the air flatten. The conversation had no pulse. In that instant, he realized he was making her feel nothing. Later, he remembered a moment from earlier in the night. She had described a street in her neighborhood where the air smells like rain before it falls. Her eyes had lit up then. That was tension. That was memory. And he'd let it slip without building on it. Machiavelli would call this a failure to control the stage. In the theater of desire, emotion is the lighting and tension is the shadow that makes it vivid. When you give only safe, agreeable answers, you turn on all the lights and kill the mood. She's not drawn into the scene. You've exposed it. But when you let a little uncertainty, a little play, and a little challenge hang in the air, you create a space her mind wants to revisit. What you'll see next isn't rejection. It's the way power shifts when you stop filling every silence with comfort. He thought being agreeable was intimacy. She saw it as a lack of presence. And presence without emotional edge becomes background noise. The man who learns to hold tension without anger, without fear, stops being just another guy and becomes an experience she replays in her mind. How much of your connection is real tension? And how much is just avoiding discomfort? What stronghold will you command next? One no siege can take. State it, and I'll give you the Machiavellian defense plan to keep it untouchable. Tonight, resist the urge to smooth over every pause. Share one thought that's vivid, specific, and yours. Then, leave space for it to breathe. You'll feel the difference, not in her words, but in the way she leans in, curious about what you'll say next. Skip the next part and you'll keep thinking attraction is about agreement. Watch it and you'll understand how to turn tension into the most addictive part of your presence. Up next, why mastering this balance is the difference between being remembered for a night or a lifetime. Attraction isn't built on chasing approval. It grows when you bring real energy, speak from conviction, and allow the right kind of tension to breathe between you. You've seen why weak questions fade from memory, why avoiding disagreement kills curiosity, and why presence, calm, grounded, unapologetic, draws people in without effort. This isn't about tricks. It's about becoming a man whose world is worth stepping into, a man who doesn't fold under pressure, who speaks with clarity, and who lets his silence carry weight. That kind of man isn't just noticed. He's remembered, respected, and desired. If you're ready to stop performing for approval and start owning the space you walk into, stay with this channel. Every video here is a step toward becoming unshakable, because the moment you master yourself, you'll never need to chase anyone again.